This week, I'm proud to announce we are going to do an unbelievable thing that we've never done before. We're going to actually review a documentary of a rock band. I know. Hold your applause. It is that awesome. So, this week, I'm going to introduce the film Some Kind of Monster. And yes, it does sound like there should be some cartoonage involved. It does sound like it might be a horror movie. It is neither. It's an emotional roller coaster of a band, Metallica, that I don't know. It's just a wild, fun, crazy ride. I freaking love this movie. Bill, you will find out, decides that he's not quite sure where he stands. And there's an emotional journey that is very heartfelt that our buddy Doug takes us through that was totally unexpected. And this is just one heck of a great episode. As usual, tons of laughter, tons of fun. But most importantly, let's get right to it. I figured because of what we just saw, we're going to review in a second here. I'd take you to school because I felt like that. I felt like that's what was happening in this documentary. I'm really excited to talk about this today because I'm going to tell you, start off real quickly here about Some Kind of Monster. In terms of, I want to get everyone's take on it, but I do a quick high level thing. But I want to ask you, like, before we left last time, I had mentioned to you guys, get out the Kleenex. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think
I was actually completely and totally not thinking that you were bringing up the Kleenex for that reason.
Is that a masturbation reference?
It's whatever you want it to be.
Well, don't you have that song, Yank Your Crank?
All right. And action.
After 20 years, is it possible to retain the fire that, you guys once had at the beginning?
I got to tell you,
tell us why you love it. Tell us why you're into it.
So, first of all, I thought the second part they added was kind of fun. The 10-year follow up. I thought that was kind of fun. It is very sad to me though to see rockers age that much. Like I really felt like, in that 10 years, they lived very hard. Maybe James didn't because he looked okay, but like Lars, he looked like he could use a colostomy bag, maybe some fluids of some kind. I mean, he may be on his way out. Kirk always looks the same. Trujillo, like even he, if you look at 10 years, I don't know if it's the pot smoke, something happened to him. I mean, he aged like 20 years in 10. But I love the movie just because I think it's such a raw example of what a documentary can do. And I think it's such a fun journey into a process that most of us have no experience in terms of this band that is so iconic that created an album that even my mom knows, the Black Album. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't know how much they were on the edge, everything else, and going through the process. And it was interesting for me because the very first time I saw this, I really didn't like the therapist. I thought he was kind of a douchebag, whatever. It's interesting because in the 10-year reunion, they talk about, I think he got a bad rap, everything else. And it was neat to see kind of all that redemption come together. So the reason I really like this movie is just because it's a really fun look behind the curtain to see, look, like hear these guys talk about like, I think that's just basic, that is just a very simple, what do you mean, and seeing Lars, who I didn't realize how small he was until I resaw this, or how big James is, one of the two, when he gets in his face and just says, fuck you. I'm like, one hand, you're done. Like he's already aggressive and he's already on edge and you're in his face. But I just thought it was a really fun way to see the making of an album, see like, and then the culmination at the end of how, like, I think the summary was how you can make something very heavy, but it doesn't have to come from a dark place, which I thought was kind of a really neat redemptive value to it, a cool creative process. And or edited beautifully. I think the footage is great. I think the storyline's awesome. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to pass it off because last time we went to Doug first. We're going to go to you this time.
Really quick before we move forward, did you have a favorite scene?
The first time I saw this, the scene where Lars loses it and he just keeps saying, fuck, fuck, he's so frustrated. I love that scene because it felt so raw. It felt so real. This time watching it, my favorite scene was actually at the beginning when they're discussing if they are going to actually make this or not.
When we were talking a couple of days ago about whether, if we wanted to do this film or not, I was wondering if having these guys in here would affect that. Because there's an intimacy that you get when it's just a few people in the room, and I'm just wondering if that's going to get lost, if we're going to go back to sort of like battling each other and trying to be like all strong and...
What intimacy? What the fuck you talking about? I think, to me, it's not going to be a matter of whether the cameras are in play, but whether or not you guys are free enough to risk being seen by other people.
I thought that was a really a neat way to introduce it, because I think if I was getting filmed that much, I would go through the same thing. Like, look, guys, we're already on edge here. We're going in to make this documentary of us. It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. Are we really ready for this? And I thought that conversation was actually very mature for a rock band. And so that was my favorite scene.
My thoughts on this are going to be so random and all over the place. You will have a hard time discerning my true feelings for this, because I don't know what my true feelings are.
Okay.
So first of all, I like some Metallica. I wouldn't say like I'm an uber fan. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen them live, and so but I do like some Metallica. So like it's definitely like, hey, they're on my radar. Like them, like some stuff. But if you quiz me about all the history and the nuance of the band, I wouldn't know it. So this was so weird from a music documentary standpoint. Okay, so if you love their music, you're going to get very little of it in this movie. You know what I mean? Like it's just, so it's not, and even like even the success of the band and the adoration, you don't really get a feel for that at all, right? You're just 100% instantly intimate with these guys. Before, if you were coming from the outside, like if you don't know Metallica at all, you would be like, why do I care about these people at all? Like, you don't even recognize like the scale and scope of who this act is. So like, it's kind of like for Metallica fans, I think. Like, it's like, you already love them, so let's go, kind of like right in. So I feel like, at least, but also for a Metallica fan, like, you love them because you love their music, and I don't feel like you got enough of that. So I would have been like, give me some more, like, give me some more concert footage or whatever. But that's not what this is. So that's just not what this thing is. I feel like I need to watch it 3 more times to give you like my full like breakdown of this thing. But I'll just give you some top line things. First of all, I don't think it needed to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Like, that felt long to me. And at the same time, when I saw that little 20-minute add-on or whatever, 25-minute add-on for the update thing, I felt like some of that could have been in the movie. So I was like, why did I miss this? Why did I miss that? Because like there's some moments in there that I was like, oh, that actually brings a lot more clarity. So then I'm trying to add footage into a thing that I wish I could cut at least 45 minutes out of. Because it was like long. The first 20 minutes of it, I was like, as I'm trying to get my bearings, because it was hitting me so differently from the way I thought I was going to see, right? Because I've seen some music documentaries before, even like Rattle and Hum or whatever. Like, I've seen like music documentaries. This is just so not that. But the first 20 minutes, I was kind of like, it was almost feeling to me like, oh, this is why they made Spinal Tap. Like, it was like their Spinal Tap, because I was also like, some of the things they were saying. Look, I come at this from multiple different emotions. Part of me is like, I don't care what whiny problems you millionaires have. Like just part of that.
I hear that.
Like, where I just go, whatever. Also, I've never seen a bunch of hard rocking biker looking dudes have such like clear, honest conversations about their feelings in ways
Yes.
that I would be like, a therapist would be lucky to get this out of you. And even that time you're talking about with Lars, he doesn't just start screaming at him. He builds to it through this huge exchange of, look, I'm just not feeling like I like being in the same room with you. You know, well, what does that mean to you? Well, I don't know what it means, but I need to say it. I mean, it's all these honest conversations for people that look like they've never had an honest conversation in his life. And it's just like, wow, you guys are just like, I almost felt like the therapist didn't need to be there at certain points where I was like, these guys clearly know how to share their feelings and emotions. Like there's no blockage there, right? And brutal honesty is just their craft and trade. I mean, they just seem to be like, you know, at all points, whether they're auditioning the bassist, trying to figure that out, you know, just the way they dialogue with each other is so crazy, straightforward, honest, articulate. It's really a unique situation that I don't think you'd find in many groups of people in any circumstance, more or less in the music world.
Agreed.
I thought the therapist thing, it was funny because I saw him all along through the movie through this kind of like, oh, it's interesting that they brought up somebody in to do this, you know, and you know that they you know, think that therapy is valuable. And I think I was equating it kind of like to what's her name's Maggie Siff's character on Billions. You know, it's just like they recognize they need a therapist is going to be like a good part of our process here to keep the energy moving or whatever. So honestly, the firing of him kind of came out of the blue for me, where it was like, and that too was just like, it seemed like this turret, right? Where they turn their honesty towards whatever they want to fire hose it on today, whether it's the music or whether it's this person or whether it's where they're at or whatever, you know, the process or and they just happened to fucking point the gun at him that day and was just like, you know, I mean, it was like every consultant's nightmare, you know, where the client he's trying to like just tread water and just be like, you know, like I could check in with you in another couple months, or hey, I think we're saying goodbye and you're saying I'm still here. What's up with that? I mean, they're just,
well,
you know.
Just to add to that real quick, so this is my second favorite scene is exactly what you're talking about. They're cutting him off from $40,000 a month. And then the next scene, they're like, listen, we want you to join our band just as a bonus, just for even showing up today. We're going to give you $1 million.
Yeah,
right.
I'm just like, you're quabbling. You're so petty that you're worried about $40,000 a month. And yet this new member who hasn't been with you through this whole journey, hasn't fixed you. We're just going to give you $1 million just for showing up today.
Although I don't know if you caught it, he said, we're going to give you $1 million. And then what's his name says, and it's an advance against future earnings.
I missed that.
Yeah. And I was like, that's right. That wasn't like a signing bonus. It was literally just like it's an advance against future earnings. So I was like, anyway, look, it was definitely interesting for me that the follow-up piece, the second one was a little I guess if you were a huge fan of this documentary and just wanted a little more, it served that purpose, I guess. But it introduced that other like concert footage film that, again, like if you've already seen that thing, it made sense. If you haven't seen it, you're just kind of like, it just was like disparate pieces of stuff. It's like, hey, we got some extra stuff. What should we do? And oh, I know what you should do, like a 23-minute update. What? Like, what is that? Like, is it a part two? Is it a, you know, they have it queued up on Netflix like it's 2 episodes. One episode is 2.5 hours, the other one's 23 minutes. And I'm like, okay, what is this? But it's like I said, there was pieces of that I felt like could have been in the regular documentary, and in which case we wouldn't have needed that at all. I actually felt like, yeah, Lars looks definitely the roughest around the edges. The other guys, I feel like they just grew into like this sophistication level where I was like, they just felt a little less like young and bratty, and I would have been like, oh yeah, no, that guy I'd like to have a talk with. You know what I mean? Like they were a little they were weathered in a good way. Like they had been through enough battles together, and they had been through enough touring and enough shit for the last 10 years, and they're still together. Where it was like, oh, they're less, babyish about their money and their business and their process and their touring and everything else. They get to like these seem like, oh, we're in a routine now. Like these are adults.
Well, ego was a big one. Coming in here and not bringing a riff, not bringing a song, not bringing a title, nothing.
Me and James did not meet somewhere else and come in here with material, with songs, with music.
This time, we all got in a room and just started playing, and that's how we wrote songs.
The idea is it should sound like a band getting together in a garage for the first time.
All right, so like I said, I had tons of things to say, and I don't even know what it all adds up to. Like I was glad we watched it. I like documentaries in general, so I mean, I was glad we watched it, and I was glad to get that insight on a band that I know their music a bit. I don't really know them. Which, by the way, they make an appearance in Billions as well. There's an episode where Bobby Axelrod takes his old friends to see a Metallica concert, but
You're
he's
right.
got the hookup, right? So he goes backstage and hangs out and like the whole thing, like they're in there for rehearsal.
Don't give away too much because I still haven't seen Billions and I'm dying to see it. So,
Well, it doesn't give
you have to
anything
watch
away.
that for next week.
the whole series,
all of it, all eight seasons or whatever. You have to watch the whole.
Wow. He did 8 seasons of that, really?
Something.
Yeah, it's pretty big. At least 6.
I'm a big fan of both Damian Lewis and Paul Giamatti, so I'm really wanting to see it.
Anyway, so I give it. I'm happy that I saw it, and I'm happy that I got that insight. I feel like I know the band so much better than I did before as people. If I had to pick a favorite character, it's their new bass player, which new.
Watching him, did you feel this way, guy? I'm curious because like watching him, because I think the part that I liked about the second one, they talked about how much better they made he made the band. I think he did, but watching him play bass, did it make you want to play bass? Like he was just in it. Like I've never played a bass in my life, but did you want to play? Like it made it look fun.
He takes on the persona of a bass. Like he becomes part of the instrument.
Yes,
that stance with the bottom down below, and he's all legs spread out, just like he looks like a tribal warrior playing bass. Like he's so intense. And just I don't even know how much he helped the music of the band versus just the vibe. Like he's so into it, and I think to this day he looks like he's still so happy and thankful to be part of the band. It's like he went to bed as a kid and woke up with his dream job. Like, oh my god, there's nothing this guy could have done.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate your opinion. I love the points you brought up because it was stuff that I hadn't thought about at all. Now, let's change it over to Mr. Mountain Dew himself.
Yeah,
Mountain Dew Zero. Come on, let's get this real.
Sorry, Mountain Dew Zero. Doug, tell us. I'm dying to hear your opinions.
Okay, guys. So strap in.
Wait, strap on or strap in?
Strap in, not on. Well, I mean, if you need to, whatever. Because this, and I've in my personal conversations with you, Justin, I've been holding back because this is a very, 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 very personal journey for me. Watching that documentary was a long time coming. It was something that I didn't want to watch originally. And I did watch it before it was assigned. I watched it a few months ago, actually. It was something that I was not interested in watching because so when Metallica first appeared on the scene, I became a rabid fan. And I don't think we've ever spoken about this on the podcast, but I used to be a professional musician and my job was bass player.
Wow.
I'm not a former guitarist. I am not someone who had to downgrade because nobody else would play bass. I actually studied the actual instrument. Cliff Burton, their original bass player, to me is in the handful of bass gods, and no one they've had since has ever touched him. I was so sad when Cliff died. And the worst thing about it was this was back in the late 80s when we had, I mean, we're talking like the ability to get news quickly didn't exist. So I didn't even know about Cliff's death for at least, what was it, 6 months or something like that.
Until Kurt
And
Loder told you.
what's
I was going to say until MTV.
I wasn't watching. I wasn't watching MTV at the time, and so I was literally living in a bubble. It seemed like, but I didn't find out about Cliff dying for like 6 months, and then at that time, if I'd had the means, if I'd had the availability, I would have picked up, moved to San Francisco, and forced my way into audition for them one way or another. But then they got Jason Newsted, and Jason's never held a candle to Cliff. But the thing is that I did see Metallica live once. It was on the Black Album tour, and that was the day that my love affair with Metallica ended.
Wow.
That show was so terrible. It was so awful. It's the only rock concert I have ever walked out of. I actually left.
Well, what made it so bad? Was it the
sound was terrible. The only way that I could actually tell what they were playing was by watching Lars, and I could tell by his movements what songs he was playing. It was the only way I could tell. The whole concert was just one big. They also bragged that there was not going to be a bad seat in the house, that there was going to be all these monitors. No, you couldn't see anything from where I was sitting. And couldn't hear anything because it was all just one big distortion noise. And the worst part was, and this is where, if Jason Newsted ever hears this, then I'm just going to call you out right now, buddy. Cliff Burton had a signature bass solo called Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. It was his. He wrote it. He did it. He performed it. Why in the living hell would Jason Newsted even attempt to do that bass solo and not just come up with his own? That was just ridiculous to me. You don't play Cliff Burton's signature bass solo in the show. That's just pandering to your predecessor. You come up with something of your own.
So you were okay with him getting fired?
What's that?
You were okay with Newsted getting fired?
You're jumping ahead of me.
Okay.
You're jumping ahead.
You're leading the witness, damn it, Bill. You're leading the witness.
My love affair with Metallica ended in 1991, and I've bought some of their albums, and I've tried to get into them, but it's just like it just seems like I'm always disappointed now. Ever since the Black Album became this thing, which I consider some kind of monster, that ever since then, it's just like they've just changed so much, and I just haven't been into them. Jason was the founder of Flotsam and Jetsam. So when he left Flotsam to join Metallica, he was leaving his baby behind. Now, to be honest with you, after he left, Flotsam became a much better band. In fact, I liked Flotsam and Jetsam better in the early 90s than I liked Metallica. They became a much better band after Jason left. But that was his baby. He left that band behind to join Metallica, and then he did become a part of that machine. So the misgivings that I have about Jason doing what he did, the whole firing thing, I kind of sided with him. I was like, if I was in his position, I would probably feel the same way. And the whole way it all went down, you know what? I don't blame Jason for having bad feelings, and I am kind of pissed off at them for what they did to Jason, because again, he left his baby to join their band, and then they treated him like he was just an employee the whole time. So that's not cool as far as I'm concerned. I've played professionally. I've been on tour. I've done these things. I know the inner workings of bands, and watching that documentary was just like having a Band-Aid ripped off. It was like, holy shit. If we had had a therapist in some of the bands I had been in, it would have been different. But then again, these guys are dealing with, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So it's a completely different approach. But yeah, it was rough for me to watch. But on the same token, it was a good watch, because it just reminded me of just how human those guys in the band are. That was like the number one thing that I got out of this documentary. One thing Bill said that was really important, and I don't have any problem with watching long things. Okay. I have so long as I'm interested and I'm engaged, I have no problem watching something long. I would have added an extra half hour to this documentary if It would have been diving deeper into their history, going into who they were as people. One thing that I know is that James Hetfield and I share the experience of being raised in the same religion. I'm not going to name it, not going to go into details, but I've heard many interviews with him where he's talked about being raised in the same faith that I was raised in, and how, once you get out of that environment, all you want to do is just say, hey, fuck it, I'm going to go do whatever I want to do. So he and I share that same path. So there's a lot of things that James Hetfield and I have in common psychologically when it comes to that. So I kind of understand his process and what he goes through. What I didn't understand, though, was his choices as far as substance abuse. I don't think I would have ever have allowed substance abuse to get in the way of something that I love so dearly. You know what I mean? So that was a problem. But again, I'm not saying that this documentary made me want to run out and start buying every single Metallica album from the Black Album on. I still haven't bought the brand new one that got released. I own Saint Anger and I own Death Magnetic, but I don't own the new one. And as of right now, I have no interest in buying it. But the thing is that this documentary was really, I can speak from experience. This really shows the insides of what happens with the band when they are imploding. It really does.
I felt like it was an agreement. We're going to work from 12 to 4, and then we would not work.
Well, if Lars and I listen to something or go through the Presidio stuff, it's not because we want to do something behind your back. It's for you.
Right.
And basically what I heard is, no, I can't do that.
Fuck is that?
I don't know, my mind, it gets lopsided. The more it goes in a different direction, the harder it is. The harder it is to get that back.
What is it you have to get back?
Some control, some sense of involvement in the band.
When I was running this morning, I was thinking about seeing incident. The word fuck just comes up so much. Seriously, that's really true.
Is that in a anger?
Fuck! Fuck. I just think you're so fucking self-absorbed.
And it is hard to watch sometimes. But I did think that the importance of this documentary was to remind everybody that those guys you see up on screen, they're real human beings. I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, any band that got famous, okay, they kind of elevated to this thing to where they were in a different dimension than the rest of us. I don't even know if you know what that means, but it was
a little bit.
They're not one of us. Okay. And one time I went, it's going to sound really weird. I went to an Iron Maiden Twisted Sister concert, and Twisted Sister opened, and they were amazing. But at one point, Dee Snider demanded that they shut the stage lights off and turn on the house lights. And when they did, that shift of light changed them and made them seem way more human. They didn't have the paint of the light on them anymore. And it was a really weird moment for me because it was the first time I'd ever seen somebody like that in that real light. Okay.
Yeah.
So now going back to this, when you watch this documentary, all that veneer is stripped away.
Yeah.
And all you're seeing is that these people are, they're all in my age group. Okay. They're all my contemporaries. Okay. Sure, they're way more famous than me, and sure, they make millions and millions of dollars, and they're known all over the world, and blah blah blah. They're way more successful, but they're still human, and they're still in my wheelhouse. And it made me feel way more connected to them as people because of the way they stripped all this away. And I feel like there could be more documentaries out there to do that. But I can be honest with you and tell you that in the last 15 to 20 years, I've been starting to feel that way with a lot of the musicians out there, that they're more human. They're more, you're not seeing the presentation as much as you're seeing who they are as people. And this documentary was definitely something that contributed to that. Oh, and I have to speak to what you guys were saying about Trujillo. Uh, I'm not a big Trujillo fan either. I'm sorry. I don't think that he really because he's just not that great of a bass player. He doesn't. I'm sorry. They had one of the gods. They had Cliff Burton, and I don't know how they're ever going to find somebody who's ever going to top him. So
in fairness, he only has 4 strings to work with. So I mean,
he had a fifth in the auditions. Do you remember? He had a fifth in the auditions.
Yes. Yeah.
He couldn't handle it
over the top.
And the thing is, a lot of bass players today are using 6 and 8 string basses now. So it's like they're getting crazier and crazier. But I mean, I'm not saying that I don't. I mean, I actually the documentary did actually open my eyes to a little bit better of who Trujillo is as a person, and I can say that now that I've seen this documentary, I like him better as a person. As a bass player, he services the job and he does what he needs to do. But I mean, again, compared to Cliff, and I'll bet he'll be the first person to say, I don't compare to Cliff. I'll almost guarantee he'll say that. Right. But I mean, that's really what I'm holding him up to. And I don't think that he would, be angry at me for saying.
I mean, this is very interesting. Both your perspectives are very interesting. I mean, sincerely, because you're coming at it from a film perspective, but you're also coming from an emotional side. It's really cool. So
Metallica was very a huge. Ride the Lightning came out when I was a senior in high school. I just dated myself, and that was when I was really at the peak of my trying to absorb all this music and trying to learn to become the best I could be. And so then when I got this put in front of me, the first thing I said was, "Oh, well, that guy's playing with a pick." And this friend of mine who was a huge fan at the time says, "No, man, he plays with his fingers." And I said, "That's impossible. Fight fire with fire. That's impossible to play with your fingers." He says, "He does." So I would sit there. You can't see this, but I would sit there in high school in class with my hand on my desk going like this as fast as I could. And people who didn't know that I was a bass player thought I was crazy. Which they were right. But
I was gonna say they're not wrong.
Yeah. But eventually when people started finding out more about what I did, then it made more sense. But yeah, I used to sit in class, my fingers on desk going like as fast as I could because I wanted to get my fingers to be as fast as Cliff.
Right.
His fingers are incredible.
So I want to tag on like a couple of things you were saying, which are kind of interesting. Like we were talking about like today's artists, stripping away some of that, stripping away that veneer and becoming more real and all that.
Yeah.
I think personally, and this goes outside the movie a little bit, I think that's partially due to the time we live in, where I think,
yes,
the onus of marketing is on the individual, not on a label anymore. And, between social media and the need to just get your face out there and your personality out there as the brand all the time, I think like that definitely affects it, but probably in a good way. Like probably we're more invested emotionally in the artist of today just because we just know more about them as opposed to like it's just the music and that's that. But the other thing I was gonna like my brother's been in a few bands and I've rode shotgun on those a few times and seen the inner workings of that thing. And whether it's a band or whether it's an actor or any kind of artist, I think it's one of those weird circumstances where if you're successful in that, which is certainly the exception, not the rule. Put it this way: if you started a car company or a software company or any other kind of thing that you were successful in, you started it as a business. You know what I mean? You had a CFO and a CEO and a general counsel and whatever. Like you were built as a company to function in the world of business. Bands and actors and all that stuff were built to function in the world of art. And so if they get lucky and they are, and I don't want to say lucky like they have no skill involved, but if they're fortunate enough to have their thing take hold and become a business, they are not business people by trade. Like this is not what they do in any sense of the word. Like, I mean, if you're a software developer and you're a tech geek or whatever, your software never came to market without a business team around you that was designed to do that. And to a certain degree, that's true of musicians, but to a certain degree, it's not. Like there's a fan base and there's love and there's we just love your performance and we love your songs and all that. And all of a sudden they're making $1 million decisions, but they're not a group that was ever designed to make $1 million decisions. That's just not who they are as people, you know. And it's a very unique that this movie really showed that unique side of it because it's to that point about like we're going to give you $1 million to sign with us tomorrow. Like, how's that decision made? You know what I mean? It's I'm sure the three of them going, "Are we going to do this for this guy? Yeah, we do." And then they turn to a business manager and they go, "Hey, make that happen legally, right?"
There's a lot of things that when it comes to the business of music, there's a lot of things that go on that a lot of people really are not aware of. And I'm always blown away when I learn these little intricate things. Like, for example, in Pink Floyd, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but they never fired Syd Barrett. So Syd Barrett made money off of every single album they ever did, including Dark Side of the Moon and the Wall. So yeah, Syd Barrett made money off of Pink Floyd. His estate still makes some money off of Pink Floyd to this day. They never fired him.
And by the way,
what's that?
Having seen any type of music business, by the way, I'm shocked that any band ever makes money. Like, I mean, it's
yeah. Well, today, yeah, especially today.
And I helped a band. Some friends had a band, and I helped them plan out. They got invited to go on the Warped Tour, and I helped them do like a budget to go plan this thing out, right? And the Warped Tour provides you with like I think it's like a free lunch and a free dinner or something every day, or free breakfast and free dinner. I said if you rent a camper, never get a hotel room, only use the free meals that they give you, sleep in your camper, okay, shower at whatever public shower there is, and you sell more merch than you've ever done in your entire life, I think you guys can get away with only losing 10 grand on this tour. and they did. They saved up 10 grand and came back with zero. Like, yep, that was pretty accurate. I was like, oh my God, like, why? How do you make money at this? Like, how do you do this? You know, it's just crazy.
Well, so that's one of the points I want to talk about here is that one of the things that I thought was so interesting is the aspect of that they even bring it up, like, we don't know anything about the business. We just want to play music. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very, that they knew nothing. I mean, I bet at the end of the day, they start off with talking, I think the very beginning, they said they sold like 90 million records or whatever, they do like a very high level, dive into this, but I don't know what that translates to. Does that mean they each got $1? So they each have 90 million? Like, I don't know what that number is. Like, what does that translate down to them? And so that's the piece that I wanted to see more of, was because it's such a look behind the scenes. Like, the only real things that we see that they buy are we see, that hot rod that he makes, right? And then you see the land that I think Lars bought. That's really it. Like,
there's no real rock and roll lifestyle in this at all.
No, that was so weird to me. Like, they seemed very frugal in their lifestyle, and that they go. It's the second one, right? Where they get the award. They go to they show what they're like at the Icon Awards. Is that the second one?
Mm-hmm.
They show up at the Icon Awards, and you can tell their publicists had a play in each of them because they came on stage with a presence. But every other day when they're like walking up, they're doing running. Like, I mean, I swear when they show that one image of Lars, which I thought was very weird, I would have cut that out when he's just running and they don't explain why, or I didn't even know he was a runner. But he's running in like this 1980s, like something that Agassi would wear or something. I'm like, it's just, these guys are very frugal, and
What's wrong with what Agassi wears?
I didn't say there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying, it just looked like a trash bag,
So Justin, like, where you recommended this. Where does Metallica sit as a band with you? Like, are they your favorite act of all time? Are they just, you think this documentary is interesting and that's why you put it out there? But I mean, where are they at as a band with you, like musically?
Yeah, for me, I'd say mid. So they're not. I mean, I enjoy it. I have many bands that are way above them. This to me was, though, kind of the genesis of me appreciating them, kind of like what you had started off with, and kind of what you alluded to, Doug, is kind of brought you back in. This is what made me appreciate them more, because the only album I've really liked by them, like, I love Master of Puppets, I love One, and I love the Black Album. Aside from that, most of their stuff to me is noise.
Ride the Lightning is a masterpiece.
But no, that's what I'm saying. So I've listened to some of that stuff more because of this documentary, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it a lot, right? Like, I mean, I really appreciate it. And now that, you know, I enjoy some of the Slipknot stuff and stuff like that, some of the heavier stuff, I understand like their influence on the industry and what they've done. So I appreciate them more than anything. So in terms of where they stand on mine, I'd say mid tier. So I'll listen to them occasionally, but they're not on my everyday playlist.
So here's my favorite part for this one in particular.
Okay.
Like this is we've had fun with this with other movies, but this is going to be one of my favorites for this one. Recasting.
I was waiting for this.
So, and I think it's here's where I come at with this is, you know, again, we've seen other rock documentaries, right? But the idea of this intense therapy session, okay, and there's some epic rock and roll, riffs throughout time, okay. First one that comes to mind, of course, like the Beatles and all that, right? And just like what would have been like to do a therapy session with the Beatles and have it captured like this back in the day, like that would have been interesting. But if you guys had to, I mean, I have my pick, but if you had to like look at like what's your therapy session movie you'd like to see with another rock band, where are you at? Who do you got?
You go first, Justin.
All right. So I know this is not on par, but I'm going to give you two if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one is Tool, because I love Tool. They're one of these weird bands that I've seen them probably 30 times in concert. I love Maynard. I just think they're awesome, but they're this weird band where they kind of break up and they do things for like 7 years and then they come back together and then they tour and then they kind of break up, but they don't ever fight. Like there's nothing easy. I'd love to understand how the band works. Dynamic. Yeah, like I just think that's fascinating. And then the second one I would say is, to be honest with you, like kind of from that genre, I would love to see one on Def Leppard. And the reason is that they're still touring. And I saw them live, I think in 2018, and the graciousness they showed the audience and the appreciation that they had and the love they had for each other. And they talked about like, look, we've never broken up. We've never even talked about breaking up. Like we just love and we play for you. That was really inspiring to me. So I'd love to understand like these guys that came from, I don't know if it's Liverpool or Manchester, but like, from nothing really, blew up in the world and have stayed together for almost 40 years and they still love each other. I'd love to get that side of it too. So those are the two I choose.
Which state fair were you at when you saw them?
Which trailer park were you in? Yeah.
No, I hear you. Like that'd be fun. I will tell you mine, and it's and again, there's so many bands that I would love to dig into this with, but
of course.
This particular one would probably be a lot of fun for me. Is I would like to see this on Fleetwood Mac.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that?
Fleetwood Mac.
Okay.
Oh man,
and
a lot of personalities.
The reason is because like obviously the inner workings of that band and the relationships and all that are legendary. But it's also because I think a lot of groups you've got this lead singer or lead guitarist or somebody that kind of rises to the top and is very much like the band, and you go, everybody else is kind of interchangeable. Like you could put a different drummer in, or you could put a different whatever in. And I'm not saying that, I'm not diminishing the effects of other musicians or whatever within a band, but I'm just saying like some bands are very much one person. Fleetwood Mac is one of those things where I feel like everybody in there is such a competent professional at their field that the way their songs go, they've even let everybody, it's almost like a jazz thing where they've let different people take lead at different times, and I just wonder how that affects the dynamics on top of everybody sleeping with each other and they hate each other and everything else. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's such a weird set of dynamics that I feel like it would be a very interesting therapy session.
So I agree. I have a question for you though, because I just learned this yesterday. I did not know this about the band. Did you know that Lindsay, was it Buckingham?
Buckingham.
Yeah, Buckingham wrote, and I did not know this, and I don't know if he even plays it, but the theme song for Vacation, the movie,
Holiday Road.
Yes. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
I thought that was.
It doesn't shock.
What was his name?
Neil
I thought it
Diamond.
was the guy who did Danger Zone from
No,
Top
it's
Gun.
not Kenny Loggins.
It's not Kenny Loggins? Okay.
No, I just happened to find this out because I was listening to some music trivia and they were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, you know, the song you never guess. I'm like, so I'd love to this I want to hear that because that's nothing like a Fleetwood Mac song.
He's also a damn talented guitarist. You know, in his own, in my opinion.
And they're a great band. That's a great choice.
Yeah. Doug, who do you got?
Well, I'm glad that you went the Fleetwood Mac route because I was going to preface mine by saying that unfortunately the band I'm going to choose, not all the members are still alive, and that's obviously the truth with Fleetwood Mac as well. Justin and I talked a while back about doing like a Ken Burns deep dive on the entire grunge movement. But really, honestly, if I was to pick just one, it would be Soundgarden. And it would be, and what I would, and to draw it into exactly what we're talking about, if Chris Cornell were still alive today, to be able to discuss their entire career, what drove them apart in '97, what brought them back together again, and what keeps them together.
Wait. I didn't know they broke. I didn't know they ever broke up.
Yes, they did in '97. I was actually in Hawaii when it happened, but I didn't see the show. I heard about it the next day that there was a problem that happened at the show and that Ben Shepherd literally walked off stage in the middle of the show, and that was it. So I've never gotten the full story as to what exactly happened, but it happened at a concert in Honolulu, and it just so happened I was in Waikiki the same night, but I wasn't at the show.
So I have a theory real quick. I think because they're from Seattle, it was Hawaii. They got too much sun and they got so much vitamin D. They were so happy they couldn't be so down anymore.
Looking California, feeling Minnesota, my buddy.
Yeah, no, that'd be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I'd still like to do it even without Chris, even without Chris's contribution, which would be a big loss. Yeah. Because I would still love to hear, you know, the entire story of Soundgarden, every single little thing. I don't know if you guys ever watched Pearl Jam 20. Anybody watch that?
I love Pearl Jam. Never even heard of it.
Absolutely incredible. As a matter of fact, it's what made me that and the Let's Play 2 concert video. Those two Blu-rays back to back were what kind of revitalized me on Pearl Jam. Because especially when you watch Pearl Jam 20, they show a lot of like their home movies that they shot back when they were first forming and Eddie was first joining the band. They talk about Eddie sending his demo tape up, a little cassette with his name on it, you know, talking about bringing him in and how Chris Cornell kind of really embraced Eddie Vedder as a friend right out of the gate because he was replacing his roommate in the band. And it was just really, really fascinating as far as, and again, it showed them as humans. It did. And that time period was when I was still playing professionally. So it was really one of those things that kind of rehumanized everybody. The Soundgarden thing would be just phenomenal because it would, you know, really deep dive into what was going on with them. Did you guys know Chris Cornell was the drummer of Soundgarden originally?
No.
Yeah, he started as the drummer, and then because he had such a great voice, they moved him up front, and eventually Matt Cameron took
him and Dave Grohl.
Exactly. Yeah. How weird is that?
Grohl started as a guitarist and became a drummer because out of necessity, and then became known as a drummer.
Right. And then became known back as a guitarist.
And then back as a guitarist for Foo Fighters. I actually thought that he learned guitar after Cobain died because he was writing the first Foo Fighters. No, I found out that he started as a guitarist and became a drummer out of necessity.
Wow.
Now, who is picking for next week? I think it thought it was Doug, but am I or is it? That's what I thought. Okay, so what are we up for here, Star?
We're terrified.
Don't be.
Pause of Fury 2?
Huh?
Pause of Fury 2?
Well, I mean, that was on my list, but then I found out it doesn't exist. So
with good reason.
not good a reason enough. No, I'm actually going to stick with the music theme. But we're back to scripted. I don't even know if you guys have seen it, but after having that conversation with Justin about the grunge scene, I couldn't help but want to revisit the movie Singles by Cameron Crowe.
Oh, I haven't seen that since it came out. That is great.
Yeah.
What about you, Bill?
I can't remember if I've seen it.
Okay. The thing is that I saw it a couple of times when it first came out, but it is a movie that I want to return to. I want to go back and watch it again because I haven't seen it in so freaking long.
See if it stands the test of time.
Yeah, exactly. Because now here it is. This is like 20 years since Singles came out, or 30 years since Singles came out. Yeah, 30 years.
Now, is this the one with Wood on it? Is this the one with Allison Chains Wood?
It should, yes.
Okay, then I remember this movie. This was
and Chris Cornell cameos in it. Some of the other Seattle grunge guys cameo in it. This movie was made right when grunge was starting to fade. It hadn't fully faded yet, but by the time the movie came out, that was the problem. The grunge movement was really kind of in decline, and so it kind of missed its moment. But it's been a really long time since I've seen this movie. Been wanting to watch it for a long time, and so I figured let's go with the music theme and see how this one turns out.
I thought you were going to say Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Seriously.
Also a musical classic.
It's wishful thinking there, Justin. Sorry.
All right, no, I'm excited. I'd much rather see this, to be honest. So
okay.
Justin, thanks for introducing us to that movie. I thought that was pretty fun and unique ride. I mean, that was not what I was expecting out of a music doc at all. Just because I've seen so many music docs, and this was unlike anything I've ever seen in that genre. So it was really fun, and it makes me understand the lack of therapy in my own life, and recognize the need for that. But definitely an intriguing look at that group, and really did humanize them a lot. Like really,
it did.
It turned them into very relatable characters as opposed to just icons on stage. So, cool.
Bill, I want to let you know I hear you, and thank you.
Is Dr. Justin in the house?
I learned that from this. I learned that. See, I learned that.
Yeah.
Sorry, my therapy cat just went through.
Let's be as open with each other as they have been in this movie. I just don't like looking at you guys anymore. Like this is just uncomfortable for me. So what? Like,
I'm just gonna say it, guys. Fuck.
Yeah, we just need to end this episode. That's it. Like, I just can't handle this.
I just like looking up at Justin.
We all do. We all look up at Justin.
And cut. Brent, we're moving on. That was perfect.
Please follow our YouTube channel and check back for future episodes. If you'd like to suggest a movie for us to assign to each other, please send them to us in the comments. This podcast is a production of Two Dips and a Dad Productions. Production and post-production support is by Sean Robinson of Parker Ken Entertainment.